And we're live. It's Thursday, the 6th of August. I'm Jason Evans, and today is the final regular Factor 8 live stream. Some quick updates off the bat. Have we heard anything from the Cabinet Minister, Penny Mordaunt, on a framework for compensation? That is a long and interesting difficult question, and I'm going to speak more about that later on. It's perhaps not the answer you're expecting. It's an interesting answer, so we'll get to that later on. Now, also, as you know, the Zoom meeting we were due to hold this Saturday to discuss the Hemophilia Centre witnesses has been postponed because the inquiry has now indicated that it won't be publishing the schedule of witnesses for some weeks. We'll keep you updated on that through the page. If you were already registered, you will get email updates through Eventbrite, so we'll keep you updated on that. But today, as promised, we are joined for the second time from the Netherlands by haemophilia patient advocate and author Cees Smit. Cees, it's great to have you back. How is life in the Netherlands now with the pandemic, with coronavirus?
Well, it went well, but at the moment it looks like we are in a second wave coming. And also at this same moment, our Prime Minister is talking on the television to the general public that they should behave much better than they did in the past months. It looks like everyone is loosening attention for corona, and that's why the number of cases is increasing sharply at the moment.
Sure.
So that's a point of concern. It's a difficult situation because you don't feel that safe anymore outside home.
Yes, no, quite right. Well, I mean, you've certainly been keeping busy because just this week, I'm going to hold it up on screen for people. I received a copy of your book that people can see there, Surviving Hemophilia, with a very nice message inside it. And one of the things, Cees, before we immediately start talking about the book, one of the things that kind of struck me about the book is the amount of photos and documents and art, and graphically it's very interesting. And some of this artwork, the paintings, they're yours, I understand, Cees.
Yes, I describe in the book that I started painting about 20 years ago in France on a holiday course, and at that time I had to recover from serious HIV problems. I had to stop working, and so I thought, well, it would be wise to do something else, and my partner wanted to go on a painting course, so I decided to do it also. And so this is the art in the book are, let's say, nostalgic gas stations from all over the world that I have painted while I was writing also this book the last 2 years. And I hope it shows some improvement of my paintings from the very beginning.
No, I thought they were so good. And what is it? I mean, I don't know if we're giving away any secrets here, Cees, but what is it about petrol stations, gas stations? What's the inspiration with that? Because I noticed that is the predominant theme. Where did that come from?
Well, as I did for a couple of decades research into the paid donor issue in the United States, I learned already 40 years ago that people were donating their plasma because they needed money for doing shopping or they needed petrol for their car.
Right.
And that's still the situation. So that's why the front page of the book shows a gas station with on top the word gas, but the shop at the gas station shows the word plasma.
Yes.
So it means that literally that you can sell your plasma there, and for that you can get in return a full car with petrol.
Got it.
So that was the inspiration, and there are several examples in the book from American literature where also authors are describing, maybe in one sentence or just in a whole chapter, that they need the money from their plasma donations to fill the tank from their car.
No, see that all makes sense now. Now, the first I've got to tell you, Cees, I haven't read the whole book, but I've certainly been reading. I've got through quite a lot of it, and certainly what I've gone through is super interesting. Now, the first part of the book kind of weaves through your early life and the early life on cryoprecipitate, factor concentrates, and you highlight this infamous 1974 document written by Judith Poole, the doctor who discovered cryo, describing the plasma used to make factor VIII as dangerous, expensive, wasteful, unethical. This is the doctor who discovered cryo making this description on factor concentrates. Given that this is the doctor who discovered cryo that you highlight in the book, why do you think she wasn't listened to?
Well, the letter you describe is from, I saw it for the first time in the book, Blood on Their Hands. And you interviewed one of the authors of that book, Donna Shaw, a month ago. And so there I saw this letter for the first time. From another book, Journey, from Robert and Suzanne Massey, that appeared in 1976, that they also opposed as parents of a hemophiliac in the United States the American way of giving plasma from paid donors or from prisoners. And for me, it was a terrible surprise to discover that Judith Poole, who is, let's say, honored by everyone in the hemophilia community by the fact that she invented factor VIII, that she wrote a letter to the American government warning for the use of paid donors. And that was totally ignored at all. So I think from the 4 examples I give from this, let's say, these early days in the mid-70s, where several people described the dangers of paid plasma because of hepatitis, that it's a big shame that the American regulatory authorities didn't take the necessary steps to forbid this.
Absolutely. Now, you say that this really stood out to me, Cees, this sentence in the book that you wrote. You say this: in the 1970s, the life of people with haemophilia was relieved by the availability of plasma products. However, most of them did not realize what needed to be done to provide these products. And I think that's a really good point. And it's one I've spoken about with patients before, is at the time in, let's say, the late 70s, early 80s, how many people being given factor concentrates actually understood what it was made of, about how it was made and where it came from? What level of understanding would, an average patient in the Netherlands have at that time of the products?
Well, as I describe in the book, I was at the same time editor of the Hemophilia Journal. So we informed our members that there was certainly a tension between the need for factor VIII and factor IX and the available supply. So at that time, they knew that it was not a easy product to sell over the counter, but that it already at that time needed a big effort from the blood transfusion services and the blood banks to deliver enough factor 8. Factor 9 was, let's say, in lesser demand because there are less hemophilia B patients. But for factor 8, for factor A, there was a tension of the supply. And I think that at that time, we did not understand how blood and plasma was collected in the United States. That came much later when we did research for a Dutch news a lot of that there were a lot of paid plasma donors in the United States, and that their background was most of the time rather dangerous. And I think that was information which was not very well known to most of the hemophilia patients and their families. And it was much more known, let's say, in the hemophilia leader community, like the World Federation, the National Hemophilia Foundation. I think they were maybe much more aware of that situation. And when I was in Omaha in the United States in 1987, when we visited with a number of parents of hemophilia children, a paid plasma center from Baxter, there it was that parents realized, oh God, are these the people who are donating their plasma for our children? And that was, let's say, one of the first time I realized that there was not so much awareness among the hemophilia community about the source of the plasma they were using for themselves or for their children.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually going to ask you about this, Cees. So, as you say, you visited this plasma collection center in Omaha that was owned by Baxter Highland that made the Hemophilia Factor 8 product. When you were there, Cees, when you were at that plasma collection center in the USA in the 80s, what did you see there? Kind of describe the scene and what you saw.
Well, the scenery, I think, was more or less the same as what I expected. It was at least a very clean environment. People were laying there on beds, and we were invited there because they wanted to show us a plasmapheresis machine which was capable to do the whole procedure in less than an hour. Normally it took about 2 hours.
Yeah.
And we were brought there to show that new machine. But from my own background, I was not that much interested in that machine, but more in the environment, what I could see there. And the shocking experience was when we had a cup of coffee with the staff from that plasmapheresis center. And they told all kinds of terrible stories about the background of the donors. So they told, for instance, that at the end of the months, when the donors had not enough money from the social security services, it was much easier to take their plasma because it was much more fluid. Once they got their monthly payment from the social security, they went to the McDonald's and they ate too fat. And then it was much more difficult and it took more time to take off their plasma. And they also told us that, let's say, the donors were not so much interested in quicker machine. Pretty when they can stay inside the plasmapheresis center for a few hours because it's a cozy temperature at that time.
Right.
So these were the kind of stories that were really shocking the parents and also me. And that's what I learned from that visit, which was absolutely not meant that we should get that kind of information there. And as I stayed a little bit longer in Omaha, I also went to the local newspaper and went through old messages about citizens from Omaha who were complaining about the behavior of the donors who were hanging around these plasmapheresis stations.
No, it sounds like these companies were kind of preying on the most vulnerable, highest risk, virally, people in society and exploiting them basically to the detriment, as we now know, of the haemophilia community.
Yeah, and at least it was in all these years, and it still is permitted in the United States to give plasma 2 times a week. And that's much more than the European guidelines permit. So it's still shocking to learn that the situation which existed in the 70s did not change over the years, despite the tragedies we had with hepatitis and with HIV. And then the companies, they are saying, well, we have our own high quality standards. But if there's something goes wrong, I don't have enough faith in the American regulatory authorities, just like with the letter from Judith Poole they ignored, that they will take measures at this time. So I think this is really an issue which should be taken much more serious by the international health authorities.
Something else, just reading the book, it kind of gave me a much greater appreciation. I mean, I knew it to some extent from when we previously had you on the show, but I think the book highlighted it to me, just how much experience you have kind of traveling internationally, seeing different parts of the world, and being involved with haemophilia communities from all these different countries. And there was a part in the book where I read that you were actually in Japan in 1996 when their minister apologized to HIV victims. There was compensation of $500,000 almost for each HIV infected haemophiliac or their family. 40% from the government, 60% from the pharma companies. Now, you were present in Japan when that happened at a memorial meeting and gave a speech. Tell us a bit more about being there at that time and the speech that you gave in Japan.
Well, I have to say that it was very emotional, especially from the Japanese side, but also from myself. First, we had a visit from a lot of Japanese lawyers to the Netherlands because they wanted to speak with me, because by then they had learned that we mailed very early in the beginning of 1983, and also a first message in September 82 to our members about the possible danger of HIV.
Right.
So it was quite shocking for me to learn that the haemophilia community in Japan was ignored information to that for about 10 years. And it was a visit of several hemophiliacs to the International AIDS Conference in Yokohama a couple of years earlier, where the Japanese hemophilia community learned that there were, let's say, other hemophilia societies all over the world who had dealt with issues about compensation, and from them they learned what happened in the past. Right. So they learned it from Turkel Anderson from Denmark, Werner Kalnins from Germany, Corey Dubin from the United States. And so they heard also about what we did in the Netherlands. And so these lawyers visited us, and when they were away, a week later, so I accepted the invitation. And when I arrived the same evening, I was on a theater floor in Tokyo where, let's say, the audience was totally filled with all kinds of media people. Right. And on the podium, we were with, let's say, 10 hemophiliacs from all over the world, and one Japanese hemophiliac who was very open about admitting that he was HIV infected. And then we had a screen behind us. And behind that screen, there were all kinds of Japanese hemophiliacs who didn't want to tell in public about that they were infected with HIV. And that same week, there was the apologies from the minister, from the company officials. And so the meeting was a little bit meant to be an opening for the Japanese hemophilia community to be going public about hemophilia and HIV. So everyone on the podium told his own story, and I also told my own story about being HIV infected through hemophilia, and what we did in the Netherlands to get compensation and how we achieved that by that time. And so after 10 of these testimonials, and also a testimonial from the guy from Japan, Hanoi. After a break, the screen behind us went open, and then all the other Japanese hemophiliacs came on the floor and told their story. So that was very emotional for them in the first place, but it was also very emotional for us as Europeans, internationals, to see what they had to go through in that past 10 years about total ignorance about the hemophilia and HIV issue.
And you mentioned it in this book, you made this comparison about the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, because maybe a year before there was a gas attack in one of the Japanese metro stations. And I learned from the American hemophilia community, the Committee of 10,000 from Corey Dubin and others, that they compared the situation of hemophiliacs with the canary in the coal mine. If there is something wrong in the blood, it are the hemophiliacs who are the first to discover that.
Absolutely. And that's something you mentioned in your speech, right?
Yeah. And at that same time, we also had sweatshirts with the canary in the coal mine on the sweatshirts, right, to illustrate it. And you can find an illustration of me in the book with, let's say, that sweatshirt also.
Absolutely. No, there's honestly, there's so much in this book series. I'm showing it again for people watching. I mean, there's so much knowledge and these really important moments in your life, you know, the history of haemophilia treatment. If there was one part of this book you would really want people to focus on, Cees, what would that be?
Well, I first learned about your existence 1.5 years ago in Strasbourg when I talked there with Kat Latinia from Canada, and she told me about the fatherless generation.
Right.
There were a lot of let's say, relatives of hemophiliacs who have died by now, who lost their parents and who don't know exactly HIV stuff. And so that was, let's say, in part a motivation to write this book, to have a living memory about all what happened for, let's say, also the relatives of those who have died.
Right.
And if there is, let's say, there are several messages in the book, it's important that Europe becomes much more self-sufficient in plasma. And that's especially for the UK because of Cordersveld-Jacob, there is not enough plasma collected in the United Kingdom. But let's say another important message is that we have to have an international investigation into the trade in human blood plasma from the United States all over the world and the safety of these procedures. And I think that's something which we owe also to those who have died, to commemorate them by having, after 40 years, still an international investigation.
Absolutely. Maybe speak about that a little bit, Cees. I know you're really keen on this idea of an international inquiry into the plasma industry at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in an ideal world, what would you want to see there, Cees? What would you like to see happen?
Yeah, I think that there should become much more awareness about politicians. Most of the time, they have a 4-year agenda, and they are not focusing on long-term healthcare effects. And that's why also the momentum to have these type of inquiries went by, because it was not disseminated internationally enough. Every country, every hemophilia society was fighting for their own compensation, and most of the time from the governments, less from the companies.
Yes.
Because fighting in court against the companies is a very difficult issue, and that still will be a very difficult issue. But I hope that this book and all the other movements which are going around, let's say in groups like yours, like the group of Cat Latia, but also in Australia there is a group, that all together, we have the opportunity to create awareness among policymakers. Plasma in the world. There are certainly parts of the world, Latin America, Africa, Asia, where not enough plasma is collected. So that should change, and every part of the world should be much more self-sufficient. And I think these are ideas which maybe can be explored in the coming year in a more detailed way.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I definitely recommend the book. It's great content. It's a good 200 pages, and you can get it from survivinghemophilia.com, and for those of us in the UK, that's hemophilia without the A, HEM, survivinghemophilia.com, where you can get it as soon as possible. Or if you're willing to wait, you can pre-order it from amazon.co.uk as well. They're awaiting stock at the moment, but that's Surviving Hemophilia by Cees Smit is the book. I'll post the links in the comments and the description a bit later on. But Cees, before we let you go, is there anything else you want to say before we say goodbye today?
No, I wish you all the luck, and your community as well, with your fight for compensation and recognition in the UK. I know it are difficult times now with Corona and with the Brexit, which we don't like as a European patient community, because we thought all the patient communities in Europe should be united. And that's what we said a couple of years ago already. But now it's a fact, and I think we have to cooperate to work together with all the patient communities, but especially you as the fatherless generation. I wish a lot of strength and wisdom in the negotiations with the government the coming months, and hopefully it will not last that long.
Well, hopefully so. You may be more optimistic than everyone else sees, but we shall see. But Cees, again, this is the second time you've done the live stream, and I'm sure people will support the book, and they'll go to survivinghemophilia.com and buy it, or amazon.co.uk if they want to wait a bit longer. But Cees, for now, thank you so much for doing the live stream again. We'll certainly, no doubt, we'll keep in touch, and I shall speak to you soon.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Cees. Bye now. Bye. So, guys, that was the second time we've had Cees Smit, and again, this is, honestly, guys, I have no, as when Donna Shaw came on, I have no financial incentive to help Cees with his book or anything, like that whatsoever. I honestly, you can see if you just look at the content in this book, he's got documents, he's got photographs, there's so much stuff in this book, and there's some of Cees's artwork as well. I don't want to show too much of the book, but it really is. It really is a good book from what I've read of it so far, and I think it will really be of interest to people in our community with everything that's going on in the minute. So I suppose we better crack on, because as you know, it is the last regular live stream, and as always, particularly because today is the last live stream, if people have questions or anything like that, I can see the comments off to my left. So if you do have any questions you want to ask me or anything like that, do feel free to get them in before we finish today. We've got a bit of time. And also Cees, by the way, if you type Cees Smit haemophilia into Google, you'll find Cees's website. He was quite clear with me earlier on today that he's more than happy, for people to contact him if they want to ask him questions, if they want to learn more about what he's done or the book or anything like that. You can feel free to do that. His email address is on his website. But coming back to the UK, what's going on? Well, there's been a real live issue today, guys. I mentioned at the start of today we've had no response to the letter we sent last week to Penny Morden asking for a decision now on the framework for compensation. But there's a catch to that. I have spent some time today in discussion with a contact at the Cabinet Office, and well, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, I'll be honest with you. And in fact, I was in, there came a point today where I thought, it's the last Factor 8 live stream. I'm going to have some real big, like exclusive Factor 8 news almost. Like, this really caught me off guard. And I don't even know how to tell you this, right? So I'm just going to tell you these events as they unfolded with the Cabinet Office today, literally over the last few hours. This is all unfolded. So, as you know, we sent the letter last week, and now and we wanted a decision on the framework for compensation from Penny within a week. And so that deadline was up as of yesterday. So today I get in touch with the Cabinet Office and I say, hey, look, it's been a week. We've heard nothing. And so I'm going to send out a press release saying that, we haven't had a response, you're ignoring us, etc. Words to that effect. And so I say, and it's only fair, journalistically, that you're allowed your chance to comment. Do you have a comment on what's happening? Do we have a decision? What's going on? So I get an email, finally, from a press officer at the Cabinet Office saying this. A Cabinet Office spokesperson said, the Paymaster General committed to addressing the disparities in financial and non-financial support for those infected and affected across the UK and is working with DHSC and Treasury colleagues to achieve this. Nothing new there, right? However, this sentence, the Paymaster General has also confirmed that this work includes a framework for compensation before the inquiry reports. So I read this, Colin see this, and we're like, wow, do you know what? For once, it took us a long time. The Cabinet Office has come through. They've finally made the decision. They've agreed to work with us on the framework for compensation. I'll read this again. The Paymaster General has also confirmed that this work includes a framework for compensation before the inquiry reports. Now, we're all in hijinks. I'm ready to announce this. I'm speaking to Collins. We're like, they've come through. We've moved this forward finally, right? After 6 months of looking for a decision, this has moved forward. I called the Cabinet Office. And my reason for actually calling them back was I wanted to just confirm the information, and actually I was going to thank them for finally moving this forward. That's polite, right? So I'm on this call, and all of a sudden things go south. And the person I'm speaking to at the Cabinet Office is saying, oh, well, actually, I'm not sure that, this might be misinterpreted. I don't think this is correct. We need to clarify this. I need to speak to so-and-so. And my, heart starts sinking. Anyway, couple of hours go by, and I get another email from the Cabinet Office. Thanks for your call. We've updated our statement to avoid any confusion. And the new statement, or the one we care about, the final sentence reads as follows. In the revised statement, the Paymaster General has also confirmed that this work includes considering a request to look at a framework for compensation before the inquiry report. Would you believe this? Today, within the space of 2 hours, right, we've gone from has also confirmed this work includes a framework for compensation to has also confirmed this work includes considering a request to look at. We're back to square one. So, I'm flabbergasted by this, right? That at one point today, I was preparing to come on here this evening and tell you all we've moved it forward with the Cabinet Office confirmed it, only to have it snatched away 2 hours later. And doesn't that speak to the kind of people they are? I have nothing else to say on the matter other than what a ridiculous series of events. I don't know whether it's incompetence. I don't know whether they just want to mess with us because they find it funny. I don't know. But what a day. What a roller coaster. We're going to carry on pushing it, but that's a little insight into the dramas that I've been enjoying today with the Cabinet Office. So, yes, that was my experience with the Cabinet Office today. Now, moving on, there are 2 job openings at the Terrence Higgins Trust. You can see those on the Terrence Higgins Trust website, which I've told them I will mention today. Those jobs are number 1, the Macfarlane Community Engagement Officer, and number 2, the Macfarlane Strategy and Advocacy Manager. Both part-time roles that can be done from home. The Terrence Higgins Trust are looking for people either infected or affected by HIV, contaminated blood products, to apply for those roles. Now, a couple of people have mentioned to me about would I want to do it. To be honest with you, I think for me, potential conflicts, time commitments, my work within the haemophilia community needs to focus on the inquiry, investigation, journalism, etc. It's not something for me right now, but I think there are other people who would be really great for those roles. So tht.org.uk, if you go to the bottom of the website, hit the jobs link at the bottom and you can learn more and apply. It's got all the information, the salary and all of that information. So tht.org.uk if you're interested in those roles. And as I say, they are welcoming applications from this community, infected, affected community. The Infected Blood Inquiry has published additional material on the Infected Blood Inquiry website, answering further questions for the HIV and hepatitis contractors. I thought about looking at that today, but to be honest, I don't think we've got the time to do it, and it's quite extensive. But if you go on the Infected Blood Inquiry website, you'll see all the information on there. So this is the last regular Factor 8 live stream. It's on to bigger and better things, and like I said last week, we're still going to do video content in different ways, and I hope these weekly broadcasts have helped in some way to keep interest and some sense of community, and I see how the numbers have grown. Shout out to everyone listening now. We've got Leslie, Wendy, Steve, Stephen, Lauren, Denise, Lynn, Hera. Shout out to everyone that's listening from the Netherlands as well, by the way, that's come via Cees. It's always good to have people internationally tuning in. Nina, John, Helen, Michelle, Tony, Lee, sure, everyone that's been supporting the campaign. I think these live streams have done a lot for helping to push things forward, keep the interest, keep some sense of community, you know, during the lockdown. I hope it has, at least. You know, I've really enjoyed it. And, you know, I checked the stats earlier, and, you know, between Facebook and YouTube, we've had over 69,000 views on these live streams. And it seems the most popular one was actually the one we did with Joe Filer Cooper, who worked on the HIV litigation, which is, you know, fantastic, considering that, you know, we've interviewed people who have names that people will know, like Mike Papantonio, Baroness Ritchie, etc. But I think it speaks volumes that someone whose name people probably won't have known before, you know, based off the strength of the information they brought, that has been the most viewed live stream. I think that says a lot. You know, all of the live streams we've done, they're all on the Facebook page, the YouTube channel. There's already some available on iTunes, Spotify podcasts. We'll be uploading, at the minute, there's only some of them on iTunes and Spotify podcasts, but I'm going to be uploading the rest of them there in time. So depending on how you want to watch and listen to these, or have been, you know, there's multiple platforms. But I think that's going to be about it. Let's have a quick look at the comments. I mean, yeah, you know, thanks. Some people are saying, you know, thank you to me, thank you to Cees. You know, I thank you everyone who's tuned in, who has shared the content, because, you know, yes, we've done this primarily for the community, but it has also helped to raise awareness in the general public as well, who, you know, with 69,000 views, they're not all going to be coming from our community. So I think it has helped to raise that awareness. And yes, we will keep pushing the Cabinet Office. Of course we will. As for getting under their skin, well, you know, I do try. we did try. I know a number of us do. And no, honestly, I've really enjoyed these. And the only reason for, and yes, to anyone asking, can I share this or anything like that? Yes, of course you can share these videos. They're all public. You can share them wherever you want. But no, I've enjoyed this venture, and it's by no means the end of the campaign at all. You know, far from it. One of the reasons why I'm winding these regular live streams down is so we can focus on bigger and better things for the campaign, because they do take quite a bit of time to organise and set up and script and all of that. But look, I think that's going to be it. I won't see you all next Thursday. But hopefully I will see you all in September, and keep a lookout for whatever we do next. You know, the campaign goes on, the fight goes on, and I'll end with this, you know, be nice to each other. You know, I know there are different views, there are different things that people want. You know, some people are very protective over certain things, but look, for those who are infected or affected, we all basically want the same thing. So let's just work together. Let's be nice to each other. And let's throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at them.